everyone, welcome back to Novel Idea. My name is Dia. Today I have a week in review. So I actually forgot a couple of books again. I don't know what it is. I just keep forgetting to talk about certain books. So I have a couple that I forgot last week or last update, and then I have a few that I have finished since then, and we'll talk about what I'm reading currently and what I might be going on to after that. So without further ado, let's get into it. So the first book that I want to tell you about is King of Assassins. This is R.J. Barker's third book in the Wounded Kingdom trilogy. And the way that it progresses in the Wounded Kingdom, we start out with our protagonist, who has a very funny name. I want to say it's like Gert or something like that. It's just weird. I can't remember now off the top of my head. I'll put it on the screen. Anyway, he starts out as a very young child. He is handicapped, and he is taken in and taken on as an apprentice. And he happens to be taken on as the apprentice of an assassin. And there are just these wonderful conversations and him finding his place in this world, and it's lovely, and I really enjoyed the first book. The second book was just way too much war, and it was 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And when we were kids, we used to ride in the back of the pickup truck, and my grandpa used to do something called goosing it. So it would be this kind of motion. Anyway, that's kind of the way that the second book felt to me. It never felt like it really got any momentum. We were with our protagonist when he was several years older, and I want to say like 6 years older. And then we come to this last book, this King of Assassins. And this one still had some battle in it, but not near as much as the second book did. And this one still had a little bit of that feeling of never really getting off the ground. I like the way it concluded, I think, pretty much. But nothing compares to the first book. But I didn't enjoy the progression of growing up with our main character. And I didn't enjoy the progression of the moral compass of what was going on. And there were so many little things about it that bugged me that just kind of brought it down in my estimation. So that was King of Assassins, R.J. Barker. I read A Death in Door County. This was, I thought, going to be kind of a cozy mystery. I have friends that live in Door County. Hi, Angela, if you're watching. I hear stories from her all the time. I wanted to, kind of get a story about where she resides, where she's from. I liked the overall premise of the book. So the premise is that there is this woman who is a scientist, and there's some odd things that are going on in the lakes around Door County, and she is hired to find out if they are being caused by a true sea monster. They want to find out if there is really a sea monster. in the lakes. And of course, she ends up getting involved with the detective, but I didn't love this one. I think partly because it had a little more adult content in it that I wanted, more in like just language and conversation. I'm not saying that it had a bunch of bad language in it, profanity and that kind of thing. It didn't have that so much as it just had a lot of sexual innuendo and just a lot of talk about sex and who wanted it and how they were going to get it and all of that kind of thing. It was just too much of that for me. But I did enjoy the mystery part of it, and I did enjoy the just camaraderie and the banter kind of that went on. I enjoyed all of that about it. So then I also read Our Hideous Progeny. It was by C.E. McGill, and this is kind of a spin-off of the Frankenstein story. And so our main female lead character is the relative of one of the Frankensteins, and her parents have died. Her grandmother raised her. She was not a kind woman, and her goal is basically just to get away from her grandmother. Her husband, who she manages to marry in order to get away from her grandmother, she and her husband work together writing scientific articles for magazines and publications in, Victorian times, and come to find out her husband is not the man that she supposed him to be. And they do work together to create a creature. I'm not going to tell you anything more than that. And it's kind of a similar story to Frankenstein, but also very different. And I really enjoyed the kind of twist that McGill put on it. I thought that it was well done, but also not as redemptive or as beautiful of a story as Frankenstein was. So, Our Hideous Progeny. I then read If We Were Villains by M L Rio. It's dark academia. It is based around a group of students who are in their final year of a Shakespearean acting school, and a tragedy that happens, and it's filled with all kinds of Shakespearean quotes and just, day-to-day life, just them being able to quote Shakespeare to one another that really fits a situation. And so I enjoyed those aspects of it. However, it is very adult, and it is very just full of, I think, modern day college kid type stuff. And it just wasn't my favorite in that way. I think that my favorite part of it all was this little twist that was right at the end, and I do mean right at the end, like the very last pages of the book, and it kind of leaves you in this state of, oh, whoa, no way. Just one of the other things that I really liked about it was what you will do for really true friendships, what you will do for people that you really care about. Still really well done as far as speaking Shakespeare to one another, and just these little quotes that so perfectly sum up a moment or a thought in the books. And so I enjoyed it in that way, but for the most part, it's not a book I would recommend to anyone, and unless I knew that they were perfectly okay with all of the other stuff that goes on in the book, because there is a lot of stuff goes on. Then I read 3 really wonderful books. So let's talk about those. I read Goodbye, Mr. Chips. This was a reread for me, and I'm so glad that I talked my friend into reading this with me. This is just the most precious story. It's short, it's not a long book, and I'm sorry, it's by James Hilton, and it is the story of a teacher who is not great at the beginning of his teaching career at being a teacher. He really wants to be, though, and he really wants to, he's shy, he really wants to be a treasured teacher. He doesn't want to be a teacher that, you know, has to hand out all these disciplinary actions and all of this other kind of stuff. He wants to just be a well-respected, well-liked teacher. And he just has a very difficult time initially with that. And this just takes us through his teaching career and what happens along the way to help him become the kind of teacher that he wants to be, and what the boys, it's an all-boys school, what the boys see in him that they truly, truly love and appreciate. And I just love it. It was so good. Then with Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia and Rainy from Rainy Day Reads, we read 3 Men in a Boat, to say nothing of the dog. And I think we should say everything about the dog, because the dog was my favorite part of this book. I loved him, and I loved the way that he was humanized by the narrator of our story, which happens to be named Jerome. And it is about Jerome and his 2 friends who are a little bit of hypochondriacs, and they think that they have every malady known to man at this time, and they need to do something about it. And so they decide to take a fortnight, go on a boat trip down the Thames, and every little thing that can go wrong goes wrong, of course. He goes off on all these little tangents. Something that they are doing reminds him of a story, and so we get to hear the story. But if you can handle it, it's very funny. The last couple of chapters were not my favorite. It ends kind of flat for me, but overall, I just thought that it was really, really good, really fun. And it was so much fun to read it with Tiffany and Rainy and just laugh and laugh as we were voxering back and forth about little things that were just cracking us up. So that's that one. Lastly, I was supposed to do this as a buddy read, but my buddies had to back out. And so I still read it. and that is A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. And this was absolutely amazing as well. I really, really liked this book. I didn't know if I was going to. I knew it was about grief. I knew that, you know, it's made to look very scary, and I'm sure that it could be for a kid if a kid was reading it. I didn't find it didn't make me cry, you guys. Everybody told me to get my tissues ready, and I can see why it would make people cry, but I'm still here. I haven't cried at a book as an adult yet, so I did when I was a kid, but not as an adult. And so this was just another one that was simply just lovely. We have a young boy whose parents are separated, divorced. His father lives far, far away, and his mother is going through something major, and he is coping with that. And his mother asks her mother to help out, and he resents that. And he's been having a nightmare, a reoccurring nightmare. And that nightmare basically comes to life in a way and begins to tell him some stories. And at the end of him telling those stories, he says that the boy is going to have to tell the monster a story, and that it has to be a true story. It's just a beautiful picture of how we move through the process of grief, and what it means to let go, and what it means to find a new way of being alive when, you know, things around us have died in more ways than one. I just really liked it. It was really good. Okay, then I also read a couple of cozy mysteries. I read Steeped to Death, which is by Gretchen Rue, and is the first book in the Witch's Brew mysteries. And these are about a young lady, I think she's early 30s, whose aunt has died and has left her house and her business. And her business is a book and tea shop, and of course, because it is Witch's Brew, it is there's a magical element in there, and a magical element that seems to run in her family. And it was lovely. I really liked it. I thought it was such a good beginning to a series. I have already started the second one. Cannot remember what it's called. I'll think of it. I'll put it up on the screen or put a picture up or something so you can see it. But I just thought it was wonderful. It was everything a cozy mystery should be. It was clean. It, you know, it has a murder. It has ex-police officer, not a police officer at the time. It has a kitty companion. It has, you know, a cozy bookshop and a Victorian home, and yeah, it was wonderful. I loved it. And then I read Bookclubbed to Death by V.M. Burns, and this is the Mystery Bookstore Cozy Mysteries. And this one was, I want to say it was pretty far into the series. It was the only one of these that I have read, though, which just goes to show you, you can pick up Cozy Mysteries in pretty much any order because they're going to go over, you know, the main points of the story in every single book. So this one was about a tornado that happened in their area. Yeah, tornado that happened in their area. I'm trying to remember what state they were in. I think it might have been Michigan. The tornado caused some flooding, and as a result, the library could not hold the book clubs that they normally held because some flooding happened at the library. And so while the damages are being repaired, the bookstore owner, who is our main protagonist, allows the library book clubs to use the bookstore back room for their book club meetings if they would like to. And it was really good too. I thought it was really well done. The main protagonist is engaged and she has a strong like family around her. Her sister is married. Her mom, I think, lives far away, but her grandma lives with her. We've got animal companions. We have a cozy bookstore. Oh, and her fiance is also a restaurateur. That was Bookclubbed to Death by V.M. Burns. Currently, let's talk about currently what I'm in. I am still reading Nickleby by Charles Dickens with Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia and Kelly from Kelly Reads a Lot. And we are probably about 40% of the way through, and it is just wonderful to reread for me. I'm just loving it. I am just loving it. I love, Tiffany said Charles Dickens feels like coming home. Reading him just feels like coming home. And it is so true, especially with this book, because this is my favorite Dickens. So I'm also reading Aurora Leigh by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. Both of these and the next two books actually are all for Victober. And so was Three Men in a Boat. This was also for Victober. So I have been reading Aurora Leigh. It's a long form poem and it's wonderful. It is wonderful. When I get finished with it, I will have to read you some quotes from it because it is just fabulous. And I'll tell you more about it when I get through with it. So we'll leave that for now. And then I have Old Wives' Tale and Anna of the Five Towns that are by Arnold Bennett. And I was originally thinking that these would be for New Woman prompt for Victober, but I'm almost through with Old Wives' Tale, and I don't think that it hits some of the points for New Woman, but it had a roundabout way of kind of getting there. So I don't know if it would qualify necessarily for New Woman, for that prompt in particular, because it wasn't that way right from the outset of the book. It's kind of become that, but it wasn't that way from the outset. So I don't know if it's appropriate for that or not. And Anna of the Five Towns, I haven't quite gotten it's like 2 pages in. So I'm not there yet for that one. I'm also currently reading another cozy mystery, but I can't remember the name of it, so I will put that up on the screen or put up a picture. And then I'm still waiting on a few books from the library that holds have just not come in yet. And then I also just got a book that I had requested, but it was just bought by my library. And because I requested it and they bought it, I got to be first to read it. And it is called Make It So. And this is by Patrick, what is his last name? Captain Picard. And it is a nonfiction biography, autobiography by him, or memoir, whatever you want to call it. And so, yeah, I have that to pick up. And I still haven't read Peter Rabbit, so that may be coming up. I think that is everything for this little wrap up. If I forgot something, I will throw it into the next one, just like I have been doing. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will see you again very soon. Like if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to.